Good morning, everyone. Today I want to share with you a story that has lived in my heart for a long time, a story about the wind and the sun. They are both powerful forces of nature, yet they teach us lessons not through words, but through the way they touch our lives. The wind rushes in, fierce and restless. It can be strong, almost overwhelming, pushing everything in its path. Sometimes it feels exciting, sometimes it feels harsh, but it always comes with force. The sun, on the other hand, shines softly at first, warm and gentle. It does not need to shout or push. It glows with calm strength, and slowly, quietly, it changes everything around it. Think about how the wind can blow and tug, trying to make someone yield, but it often only makes them hold tighter. Now think about the sun. It doesn't fight, it doesn't push, it simply warms, comforts, and makes one feel at ease, and in that warmth, resistance melts away. That is the beauty of true strength, not in force, but in kindness, patience, and quiet power. For me, the wind and the sun are not just parts of nature. They are reminders of how we choose to face the world. Some of us try to demand, to control, to prove our power loudly like the wind. But real influence comes like the sun, through consistency, through love, through light that needs no announcement. This story tells every girl something special. We do not have to be loud to be strong. We do not have to be forceful to make change. Our strength can be soft and still transform the world. Like the sun, we can bring warmth that reaches hearts. We can shine with a glow that no storm can dim. So whenever you feel that life is asking you to prove yourself, remember the wind and the sun. Choose warmth over pressure, choose light over struggle, and you will discover that the gentlest touch often has the greatest power. True strength is shown through gentleness, not force, and this is a lesson that nature itself demonstrates in countless ways if only we pay close attention. When people think of strength, they often imagine power, control, or the ability to dominate others, but that is only one narrow view. Real strength lies in the quiet ability to influence, to heal, to guide, and to endure without shouting or demanding. Gentleness is not weakness. In fact, it takes far more courage and confidence to stay calm when others are loud, to remain kind when others are cruel, and to show patience when everything pushes you toward haste. A gentle soul can change the hardest of hearts, and a gentle word can mend what harshness would break. If you look at the wind, it can roar and rush, tearing through trees, shaking the earth, and frightening all who hear it. It may show its force with great noise and destruction, but the moment it stops, all is still, and the memory of its fury fades into silence. Now think about the sun. It rises quietly every morning, without fanfare or demand, and yet it lights up the world. It makes flowers bloom, ripens fruits, brightens skies, and gives life to every living being. The sun does not need to prove its power, because its gentleness is already strength enough. This difference shows us something important. Force may create fear, but gentleness creates life. In our daily lives, we can see this truth in the way people treat one another. When someone speaks harshly, it may silence others for a moment, but it rarely wins true respect. When someone speaks with kindness, even if softly, people listen, they feel safe, and they carry those words in their hearts. Gentle actions leave lasting marks where forceful actions often leave scars. True strength is not about the ability to control someone's actions, but the ability to touch someone's feelings in a way that inspires them to willingly open up. Gentleness is also a strength in times of conflict. When tempers rise and voices grow sharp, the one who chooses calmness becomes the strongest person in the room. It is easy to fight fire with fire, but it takes real strength to put out that fire with water. A gentle response can end an argument faster than shouting ever will, because gentleness diffuses the tension, it softens anger, and it invites understanding. It is not about surrendering, it is about choosing the higher ground, about controlling oneself instead of trying to control others. That is a strength few can master, and that is why gentleness is a rare and powerful gift. Gentleness also teaches us about endurance. Think of water flowing in a stream. It seems soft, it moves lightly, yet it can carve valleys, shape rocks, and transform entire landscapes over time. Force is short-lived, but gentleness has patience, and patience gives it the power to last. The strongest relationships are built not on control, but on care, not on demands, but on compassion. The most admired leaders in history are remembered not for their cruelty, but for their kindness, for the way they touched hearts and changed lives without breaking spirits. When you practice gentleness, you also create space for others to grow. A gentle hand encourages, a gentle word lifts, a gentle presence comforts. Strength is not about towering over others, but about helping them rise. The beauty of gentleness is that it empowers both the giver and the receiver. It makes the world softer, brighter, and kinder, and in doing so, it shows the truest form of strength that no amount of force can ever match. The wind pushes, but the sun inspires change with warmth, and this difference carries a lesson deeper than it first appears. When the wind blows hard, it forces people to resist. It pulls at their clothes, it lashes against their faces, and it makes them clutch tighter to whatever they are holding. The harder the wind pushes, the stronger the resistance becomes. That is the nature of force. It may show itself with great energy, but it often creates the opposite of what it intends. People do not yield willingly to pressure. Instead, they fight against it. The sun, however, teaches another way. With its warmth, it does not demand, it does not push, it simply shines, and by shining it inspires change from within. The cloak that could not be torn away by the wind is gladly laid down under the sun's gentle heat. That is the difference between pushing and inspiring. This truth can be seen everywhere in life. When someone tries to force another to change, it is rarely successful. Rules, threats, demands, or pressure may produce short-term obedience, but they do not bring true transformation. People may act differently on the surface, but inside they remain the same, waiting for the moment when the pressure fades so they can return to what they were. But when someone inspires change with warmth, with care, and with understanding, the shift happens naturally. It does not feel like control, it feels like choice. That is why the change created by warmth lasts longer and reaches deeper, because it comes from the heart rather than fear. The way the sun inspires also shows the power of patience. It does not rush. It does not try to overwhelm the world all at once. It rises slowly, its light spreading gently across the horizon, and little by little, darkness gives way. That is the way warmth works in human connections as well. It does not demand immediate results, it trusts the process. Whether in friendships, families, or even in leadership, the warmth of consistent kindness eventually creates the conditions where change is not forced but embraced. Think of how teachers influence their students. The ones who push with constant pressure, criticism, and harshness may gain obedience, but they rarely win true respect. Students may study to avoid punishment, but they do not fall in love with learning. On the other hand, the teachers who inspire with encouragement, who shine their warmth on every effort, even the small ones, make students eager to grow. They do not study out of fear, they study out of love, and that kind of change endures. The same principle applies in every relationship, whether between friends, parents and children, or communities. Warmth has the ability to unlock doors that pressure can never open. Warmth also creates trust, and trust is the foundation of any meaningful change. When someone feels the steady glow of care, they let their guard down, they relax, and they open their hearts. Just as the sun makes flowers bloom by creating an environment where they feel safe to grow, warmth in human interaction creates a space where people are not afraid to be themselves, not afraid to take risks, and not afraid to change. The wind may try to strip away, but the sun draws out what is hidden inside, bringing beauty to the surface. It is also important to see that warmth does not mean weakness. The sun may appear soft, but its power is immense. It can melt ice, it can dry rivers, It can shape climates, and it sustains all life on Earth. In the same way, warmth in character is not about being passive or fragile. It is about having the quiet confidence to influence without force. It is about believing that patience and kindness can achieve what pressure never could. That kind of strength does not need to announce itself. It is felt and remembered. In our own lives, we face moments when we want to push others to change, whether it is a friend making mistakes, a sibling who will not listen, or even ourselves when we fall short of our goals. The temptation is to apply pressure, to push harder, to demand results. But the lesson of the wind and the sun reminds us that pushing only creates resistance. Warmth, on the other hand, encourages openness, invites trust, and makes change not only possible but lasting. Quiet consistency creates deeper impact than loud power, and this lesson reveals itself in the most ordinary moments of life. Loud power may catch attention quickly, but it fades just as fast, like a burst of thunder that startles but then drifts into silence. Quiet consistency, however, is like a steady heartbeat, always present, always reliable, shaping everything around it without needing to be noticed. The difference between the two is not in how strong they appear at first, but in how lasting their influence becomes over time. People often confuse noise with strength, but real strength does not need to shout. It simply continues patiently until its presence becomes impossible to ignore. Imagine a river flowing gently through the land. At first it seems soft, almost fragile compared to the solid rocks that surround it. Yet over years and centuries, that same gentle flow carves valleys, creates pathways, and changes landscapes. The rocks may look unmovable, but the quiet consistency of water proves otherwise. This is the power of persistence without noise. It does not need to prove itself every moment. It trusts that steady effort will achieve what sudden force cannot. Loud power may create fear or control for a while, but quiet consistency builds trust, and trust is what allows true change to last. When we look at the world, we see many examples of this truth. Think about those who demand attention through force, through volume, through control. They may be noticed quickly, but when their force is gone, so is their influence. On the other hand, the people who work silently, showing up every day, caring for others, practicing patience, building with kindness, are the ones whose presence endures. They are not remembered for a single moment of power, but for a lifetime of steady impact. Quiet consistency may not make headlines, but it shapes lives in ways that loud power never could. Even in personal growth, this difference matters. A person may set loud goals, making big declarations, promising dramatic changes overnight. But such efforts often burn out because they are fueled by noise, not by steady rhythm. Quiet consistency, like a daily habit, does not seek praise. It simply repeats little by little until transformation becomes real. Whether it is learning, working toward dreams, or caring for oneself, the results that last are always the ones built slowly and faithfully. The loud beginning may look impressive, but it is the quiet journey that carries us to the end. This is also true in relationships. Loud displays of power or emotion may shake someone for a moment, but they rarely nurture deep bonds. What builds trust between two people is not the grand gestures shouted to the world, but the small, steady acts of care shown every day. Being present, listening with patience, offering kindness without needing recognition, these quiet consistencies are what create ties that cannot be broken. Love that shouts may sound dramatic, but love that shows up quietly and consistently is what stays. Nature itself is filled with examples of this wisdom. The seasons do not arrive with noise, but with steady cycles. The sun rises every day without fail, never demanding notice, yet nothing on earth could survive without its quiet consistency. Plants grow silently, inch by inch, transforming landscapes without making a sound. Even the smallest seed, given time and persistence, can grow into a mighty tree. Loud power may dominate for a moment, but the world is built and sustained by forces that work quietly, faithfully, without pause. Quiet consistency also has the power to soften resistance in a way loud power cannot. When someone tries to dominate with volume or control, it often leads others to push back. No one likes to feel forced or overpowered. But when the same message, the same care, or the same effort is shown steadily and gently over time, people stop resisting. They begin to trust, to relax, to believe in the sincerity behind the action. The change comes not from being forced, but from being steadily guided. That is why quiet consistency leaves deeper marks, because it works with the heart instead of against it. The strength of quiet consistency also lies in its humility. Loud power demands recognition. It seeks applause and authority. Quiet consistency does not care about being noticed. It cares about being true. It is the steady flame that continues even when no one is watching. And it is this flame that lights the path for others long after noise has disappeared. In a world where so many voices compete to be the loudest, it is often the quiet and consistent ones that actually shape the future. Warmth and kindness can melt resistance where pressure cannot, and this truth shows itself in both the smallest gestures and the greatest challenges of life. When people are met with pressure, they naturally put up walls, holding on tightly to whatever they wish to protect. Pressure makes hearts guarded, minds defensive, and spirits closed. It may achieve temporary obedience, but it does not open the door to trust or willingness. Warmth, however, does something entirely different. It softens the heart, it eases the mind, and it gently invites change without demanding it. The act of kindness has a way of dissolving barriers that force could never move, because it touches the deepest part of a person's humanity. Think of ice standing strong against the cold. It is hard, sharp, and unyielding, yet when touched by the warmth of the sun, it begins to melt. The sun does not strike it with violence. It does not demand that the ice break apart. It simply shines, and in shining it changes everything. This is the quiet strength of warmth and kindness. They reach places that harshness cannot, and they awaken responses that pressure could never achieve. People open themselves when they feel cared for, not when they feel pushed. In daily life, this is easy to see. A child scolded harshly may obey out of fear, but her spirit will withdraw. She will protect herself against the sting of criticism. On the other hand, a child guided with warmth and encouraged with kindness feels safe to try again, to learn, to grow. The difference lies not in the demand, but in the approach. Pressure creates silence, but kindness creates trust. And in trust, there is room for change. Even in conflicts, this lesson becomes clear. Arguments fueled by pressure rarely end in understanding. Each side pushes harder, raising voices, tightening their grip on being right. But when one side chooses kindness, listening with patience, responding with gentleness, the entire atmosphere shifts. The walls of anger begin to crumble, and space opens for dialogue. Warmth diffuses tension the way sunlight clears morning fog. It does not fight to win, it invites both sides to see each other clearly. Warmth and kindness also hold the power of healing. Wounds created by pressure often take years to mend, but a single act of kindness can begin to restore what seemed broken beyond repair. A smile offered in a moment of despair, a gentle word spoken when silence felt heavy, or a small act of care when someone expected rejection. These moments reach beyond logic and touch the heart directly. Where pressure creates scars, kindness creates bridges. Those bridges last because they are built not on control but on connection. The most lasting influence is not born out of force but out of compassion. History remembers not only those who commanded with strength, but even more those who led with kindness. Great leaders, teachers, and figures of change often understood that people cannot be truly moved by pressure alone. They must be touched, inspired, and encouraged. A heart moved by warmth is more powerful than a hand forced by pressure. People may forget demands, but they never forget how kindness made them feel. The same truth applies to self-growth. Pressuring oneself with harshness, criticism, and unforgiving standards often leads to exhaustion and resentment. It may push progress for a short while, but it burns out quickly. Warmth toward oneself, on the other hand, creates resilience. Encouragement, patience, and kindness build a foundation for growth that lasts. Instead of resisting one's own efforts, the heart joins them. Just as warmth melts ice, kindness melts inner resistance, allowing change to flow more naturally and joyfully. Nature mirrors this wisdom in countless ways. Seeds do not burst open under pressure, but under warmth. Flowers do not bloom when forced, but when given gentle light. Even the hardest soil can be softened by the steady touch of rain. Every example reminds us that lasting transformation happens not by pushing harder, but by creating the right environment for openness. Warmth creates that environment and kindness nurtures it. Girls can embrace soft strength and still transform the world, and this truth shines through countless examples in life where gentleness becomes the greatest power. Strength is often shown as loud, harsh, or dominating, but that image leaves out the kind of strength that grows quietly yet changes everything it touches. Soft strength is the courage to be patient in a hurried world, the power to remain kind in the face of cruelty, and the ability to hold steady when others are shaken. It does not need to roar to be felt, and it does not need to force to be remembered. Girls who embrace this form of strength carry within them the ability to shape lives, families, communities, and even generations without ever abandoning their softness. Soft strength is not weakness. It is easy to confuse gentleness with fragility, but softness requires more courage than hardness ever will. Anyone can raise their voice, anyone can demand, anyone can try to dominate, but it takes discipline to stay calm, to choose understanding, and to show compassion when anger seems easier. That is the heart of soft strength. It is strength guided by care. Girls who live with this balance discover that they do not need to imitate loudness to be powerful, because their influence comes not from fear but from love. In the world around us, examples of soft strength are everywhere. A mother who spends sleepless nights caring for her child shows strength that no battle could measure. A sister who encourages her sibling when no one else believes in her shows a strength that changes the path of a life. A friend who listens without judgment offers strength that gives courage to another's heart. These acts may not look grand in the moment, but their impact runs deeper than anything forceful could achieve. Girls who choose kindness, empathy, and gentleness are not choosing weakness. They are choosing a form of strength that reaches further and lasts longer. Soft strength also has the power to create harmony where there is conflict. In arguments or disagreements, responding with aggression often adds fire to fire, but a girl who chooses patience and gentle words can shift the entire atmosphere. Her calmness disarms anger, her listening brings openness, and her kindness makes space for peace. This is not about avoiding conflict. It is about handling conflict with a strength that seeks solutions rather than victories. The ability to bring calm into chaos is one of the most transformative strengths anyone can carry. The beauty of soft strength is that it inspires others without forcing them. A girl who stands firmly in her values, yet carries herself with warmth, invites respect rather than demanding it. People naturally gravitate toward her, not out of fear but out of admiration. Her quiet consistency, her ability to remain gentle in moments of trial, becomes an example others long to follow. This is how transformation begins, not through control but through inspiration. Soft strength is also enduring because it is rooted in patience. Loud power may burn brightly for a moment, but it fades quickly. Soft strength, like a steady flame, endures over time. It does not depend on recognition, and it does not vanish when ignored. It is present in daily acts of care, in the decision to show up again and again, even when no one notices. Girls who understand this know that their influence may not always be visible immediately, but its impact grows quietly and steadily until it becomes impossible to overlook. The world often celebrates boldness and overlooks gentleness, but the greatest transformations in history and in daily life have been born from soft strength. It is the power that heals broken relationships, that builds communities, that raises children with love, and that keeps hope alive when everything seems dark. Girls who choose this strength are not stepping away from power, they are stepping into a deeper form of it. They remind the world that power without care is empty, but care with strength is unstoppable. Soft strength also allows girls to honor their true selves. They do not need to change who they are to be seen as strong. They do not need to harden themselves to fit someone else's idea of power. By embracing their natural capacity for kindness, patience, and empathy, they prove that these qualities are not weaknesses but sources of transformation. When girls carry this truth with them, they not only change their own lives but also influence the way others see strength itself.